I've lived 1,000 lives. I've piloted 1,000 souls. I've killed and fought and died just for another role.
This is the Happy Jacks RPG podcast, a roundtable discussion that's a mix of friendship, humor, unbridled enthusiasm, and tabletop RPG topics sent in from around the world.
Just for another role. I've lived 1,000 lives. I've piloted 1,000 souls. I've killed and fought and died just for another role.
This is the Happy Jacks RPG podcast, a roundtable discussion that's a mix of friendship, humor, unbridled enthusiasm, and tabletop RPG topics sent in from around the world.
Just for another role.
Hello, and now we're working. Welcome to season 30, episode 21 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. My name is Kimmy.
And I'm Bill.
And Bill is back from the great Northwest.
I thought you were going to say back from the grave for a
No,
second.
great.
Whoa.
And then I was like, I guess we're still west, so the north,
Yeah,
north,
the
north,
Pacific
Pacific
Northwest.
Northwest.
The PNW, that's
yes.
right.
So we're very glad that you're back living in Southern California with us again.
Yay! I got here just in time for the cool weather. This is awesome.
Yeah, that's a lie.
It's like 104.
It was 104 today. Our little air conditioning in the studio is like, I'm trying. I've been on for 3 hours. I'm trying.
You know how hot it was today, and this is true. I went to go drive my car, and Elspeth and I went to breakfast, came back, I'm like, okay, I'm going to run some errands, and I went out, and there's a massive crack in my windshield.
Yeah.
Because my car got so hot.
So hot.
It cracked the windshield. I was like, oh, okay.
That's a thing.
Welcome home.
Yep. Welcome back to the desert.
That's right.
All right. In today's episode, Erica asks about the strangest place we've ever played an RPG. Davies shares LARP wisdom about how to keep playgroups happy and healthy using safety tools, and that's kind of a reference to our LARP horror story from a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
And Verk talks about how he used Decima to start a campaign, and he's giving away a physical copy, so we're doing a contest with him.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Sweet.
So very exciting. And that's a big deal because there aren't really physical copies of Decima available right now. So
Right, exclusive.
yeah, if you haven't gotten one yet, this may be a way to get one. Also, that was not my idea. That was something he came up with. Like, I'm just reading his email that he sent in. If you'd like to contribute a question or topic to the show, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. And thank you to everyone who actually sent in emails last time. We have like a good amount, but we can always use more. Never don't send in an email. Never don't send. That's a terrible way to say it, but you know what I mean.
Always send emails.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. I'm very tired. It's the second week of school. I'm hanging in there. All right, announcements. This week we would really love it if you went and subscribed to us on YouTube specifically. We are making a big push to get our backlog of YouTube content shared with more people, and one of the ways to do that is to have a bump in subscribers. It's totally free. Like, we're not asking you to do a paid subscription of any type. So if you have a YouTube account or any kind of Google account, I think works with it. Yeah.
It's
Literally-
super easy. If you
yeah.
happen to use that unknown small little thing called Google. Yeah. You're hooked in.
So if you'll go to youtube.com/happyjacksrpg, just go and subscribe and maybe check out some of our old content there. There's a ton. There's over 20 different systems, APs in over 20 different systems, plus a number of years of amazing advice show content. And you can see our beautiful faces. And even if you never plan on watching again, having a whole bunch of subscribers in 1 month will boost us and hopefully get us seen by more people. And we would really appreciate that. All right. So it's just Bill and I here tonight. So we will do our best. And I feel like we between us, we have tons of
Yeah.
good advice.
Yeah, sure. We can talk a lot. We're in.
We can. We definitely can.
That's right.
All right. Do you want to read the first one?
Sure. It's a wee one, but it's going to spawn an incredible discussion. Hey, gang. This is a little discussion topic. What's the strangest place you've ever played an RPG? For me, well, in my original group, there was a guy whose dad was a funeral director.
Oh my gosh.
And they lived on the top floor of the funeral home. In the basement was the prep room. We had the great idea for me to run Call of Cthulhu on Halloween night in the basement office just down the hall from the body prep room. Being a bunch of goofy teenagers, that's what we did. Afterwards, the guy revealed a little secret. There was a body waiting to be worked on in the prep room. So, yeah, I ran Call of Cthulhu on Halloween night in the basement of a funeral home about 20 feet from a dead body. What's yours? Oh my God, Erica. All right. Thank you for that. Wow, that is intense. I love that.
That's hard to top.
That's a tough one. So, because it's I don't know, unusual. I think strangest places. There's been some cool places and some weird places. One, like, first one that jumped to my mind was very early when Happy Jack started going to our Strategicons. They had it not in the hotel where it is now, but just down the street. And somehow we, on purpose, accidentally, I'm not sure, found our way up to like this sky bar that was closed.
Yeah, we were assigned that.
And we were assigned it. They're like, oh, you guys are doing a podcast stuff? You should go up here. And it was this massive bar on like the top floor of the hotel. Yeah, amazing. That wasn't being used for some reason. So we set up in there and we had the big long table and we ran games up there and like that became our hangout.
Yeah, we all just we did games up there. We also did some like WoW raids up there because a couple of us were in a World of Warcraft guild together at the time. So like we logged into the Wi-Fi on our laptops and we're raiding and then gaming and then just like hanging out. I think some of us like fell asleep and maybe I don't know if they spent the whole night there.
No,
but...
there was sleeping there. There was like it was crazy, and I think too one of the things that was nuts about it is because we were streaming, and they were like, we're gonna put you up there because it has its own Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Right. So we had we weren't on the big massive everybody and their uncle jumping on.
That was way before we were streaming though. That was back when I think Stu was recording. I don't think it was live.
Oh, maybe not. But
that was a long time ago.
There was some reason they put us up there, and the bar had its own Wi-Fi hookup.
Yeah.
It was just like nuts. We're like, this is the best. We got to do cons all the time.
All the time. And we did, and then we didn't get that room ever again.
Yeah, and then they didn't go to that hotel anymore, and it was like very sad. That was a very cool place. I don't know if it was. It was strange to me because it made no sense. It was a massive room, like really plush, super cool, like a big massive bar, and we just like set up tables over on one side, and we're like, hey, let's do a podcast, everybody.
Yeah, it felt very like penthouse high roller, like we're so cool, and we play our D&D game.
That's right. It was the whole
and WoW raid.
Yeah, it was definitely that. You shouldn't be here.
Yeah,
but somehow we snuck in.
Yeah,
that was the first one that jumped to mind.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, this one is weird because I feel like camping, but I feel like that's not weird. But I feel like that was one of the most immersive kind of experiences. I guess the biggest one is like Ren Fair. Like I did a game at Ren Fair once, and technically it was camping because we camped at Ren Fair at the time, but it wasn't camping like normal camping. Like back in the olden times of the Southern California Renaissance Fair, like most of the people who worked at fair camped there. That's not the case anymore. There are a few people who get to camp now, but so there was this big giant place called Tent City. And so people would go, they'd set up their tents. I just had a mattress in the back of my dad's pickup truck that had like a shell on it. And that was so much easier than dealing with a
That's like
tent.
a luxury apartment at Tent City.
It was so nice. And like close it at night, not hear anybody. So when you go and work the weekend, you'd go camp on Friday and Saturday night, and then you drive home on Sunday. And so there's a bunch of wild stuff. I'm not going to go into what happens in Tent City stays in Tent City. But most of us go and hang out around fair site. So at the time we had permanent buildings. So you'd walk around and there were like 2-story buildings and stages everywhere and stuff like that. Now we have to tear it all down and build it back up. I say we, like I do it anymore. I don't. But so a bunch of us would gravitate to whatever stages we performed on and just random stuff. And at one point, there was like a party I was at, and we went back to, I think it was one of the inns, like in the front of Fair. I don't remember if it was the Green Man or the Whorehouse or which one it was. Because it was back at Devore, but like hanging out, and like people started talking about gaming, and so like we all wandered back together and we're like, let's game right now. And it was like a half game because we didn't have any of our gaming stuff.
Sure.
Someone had some dice because like they thought it was hilarious to have like ye olden dice, and like they carried it around as part of their costume. And like so we were like half playing with like rules we remembered and like what we wrote down on like paper that was sitting there. But it was like a very cool experience. I was very drunk, but like gaming in a like medieval village was super fucking cool.
I've always wanted to do, like, I've never been drawn to LARPs for some reason, even though we've done Renaissance Fair and other
I think it's
costume
because of
stuff.
Ren Fair.
Maybe.
That's my theory.
But I've always wanted to go to those like
D&D
game
in
in
a
a
castle.
castle. Yeah. Oh my god, like that would be so cool.
Mhm.
Would just be just and when we were living in England, it was like maybe I can go do that, and then it was like, oh, I have no time, and our kids like through two,
Yeah.
so it was like really.
It's a hard time to do
challenging.
anything.
It is, yeah. And but I always thought that would be a blast. I also would love to go and like do, and I always kind of do the specific thing, like D&D in a castle makes sense, right? I'm gonna go do like 7th Sea on a pirate ship.
Yeah.
Right, and like I imagine like doing a cruise,
Mhm.
right? It'd be super cool. I know that there's a lot of the gaming cruises now, like Joko and stuff, which I one time was signed up to go and do. We were super excited. Elspeth and I were going to go, and then was like, oh, we're pregnant. We can't go on a ship with a pregnant.
No.
So yeah, which was
With a
pregnant. Yeah. That's about as cogent as I was at that point. It was like baby coming, baby having baby.
Small human.
Yeah, like yeah. So that was, but I've always like, you know, interesting locations
Mhm.
are cool. I think it's neat when you just find a place when the place is unusual because either it's kind of like just an almost spur of the moment found place to do it,
Yeah.
or you make it an unusual place.
Yeah.
When Stu and I were roommates in college, we used to do these GURPS games where everybody played themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'd stat yourself up and
Nice.
like, you know, and then we would set them in real time. And there was one where we invited everybody over
Mm-hmm.
and we're like, yeah, we're going to play, and invite them over to the apartment. And then we locked one of the doors, the back door, because everybody used to come in the back door of our house,
Mm-hmm.
but the front door was unlocked, which was
Mhm.
super unusual. And there was all these like parking tickets that were on the front door, and all the lights were out. And people were like, what the hell, right? They're like because like somebody had like put something in there, no idea. So they came in and they're like, hey, are you guys here? What's going on? And they finally just kind of come in and they're like, oh, well, the door was open, that's weird. And they come upstairs and we're in Stu's bedroom, and we've with tape made a big pentagram on the floor, and we're seated on either side of it, and there's like candles going, and we're perfectly motionless.
Yeah.
And they're like, what are you get what? And we're doing it, and then Stu goes, okay, so you walk in the room, they're like, ah, like everybody freaks out. And that was the beginning of a GURPS game. And then we did it where Stu and I co-GM'd it, and I think I took downstairs and Stu took upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had things where they had to keep going up and down the stairs to do things. And at one point when they ran upstairs to go look for something, whichever one of us was downstairs, or maybe we were both downstairs by this point in time, went over to our circuit breaker and went and started throwing the lights on and off. And they were and we found out one of the guys who was in the game had this fear of not darkness, but of like power failures.
Oh.
And he just like freaked out. I mean,
Oh.
this was long before we were using
What year was
safety
this,
stuff.
Bill?
This is like
1741.
I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
You know, back before, when it was ye olde lines.
Mhm.
No, but we had no safety tools or anything. We're like, oh, we've all game together. Screw it. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so he freaked out, and then they got really on edge, and they came down the stairs, and one of the guys had picked up like a bat or something out of either my room or Stu's room.
Uh-huh.
And they were like coming down the stairs, and this is where they were going to have like their big encounter. Because the whole idea is that we went through this portal, and then they were going to come through and find us.
Yeah.
And so they came through, and it's like, oh, okay, now you're on this reverse side. And we did stuff where we wrote stuff in reverse on mirrors, and
My
we had like computer
gosh.
programs running.
I
where
thought
they
you
could look
said
through
you
code.
didn't LARP.
I know. It's like this is definitely like that, yeah, pretty borderline. Well, the costumes, but
Yeah.
so and so they came, and they come down the stairs, and I think it was Stu, like, is at the foot of the stairs, and he was like, oh, whoa, like a zombie attacks, and one of the guys just like takes a swing at him with the we're like, oh, okay, all right, everybody, we're gonna go sit around the table now, like we just immediately.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe that's the reason I don't LARP. Maybe traumatically in my head, it's like, but what if someone gets a bat again?
Yeah.
But I think the thing I liked about that made it unusual is that it was a space that everybody had played a lot in. Everybody knew our apartment. We used to have parties there all the time. Like, everyone was very familiar with it. And then they came in, and it was all weird and strange in what we'd done. And it was really interesting how that became much more real and immersive
Yeah.
to them in the space. I think it's because they knew it.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's also why I never go to like haunted mazes or anything, because there are people who do fight or flight. I am the first one, and I would get kicked out by not trying to. Like, someone would like surprise me, and I'd be like, "Oh God!" and like smack them, and it would not end well. And I have too many people who work at those. Like, I'm gonna end up punching someone I care about deeply and don't know it's them.
Right.
So, yeah, I've always a couple weeks ago, we got an email about from someone in Norway, and they're running like a small convention in.
Oh,
So
I
cool.
listened to that one.
Yeah.
Oh my God, like
In,
a Viking longboat house or something. Oh
yeah.
my God.
So I've actually been like obsessed with it since then, and I've actually done like looking around, because LA has a lot of cool places, like fake castles you can rent and stuff like that. And I've been like talking to my husband who's in the industry. I'm like, okay, like, what places can we find? Because I'm like, and like the place like where you got married and stuff like that. Like, there's like buildings you can rent. Some of them even have like sleeping quarters and stuff. And I'm like, okay, would we be able to get convince enough people to go to this that we could like split the cost so it would be like doable for everyone? If it's like $3,000 to rent like the building for a weekend, or well, it'd be a lot more than that, but like, and if we were like had enough people interested to sign up to go, and even if it wasn't like to spend the night there and stuff, like do like a mini, like we have JackerCon online, we like have a mini Happy Jacks Con in some weird little building.
I mean,
somewhere.
there's like cool verbos and stuff.
There's so many cool
like,
places.
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit before it started. Because of COVID and living in Washington, I did tons. Like, I super got into like gaming virtually and online and everything, and made some great friends that I never see because they all live on the East Coast and stuff. Yeah. But one of them is like seriously like the best Fantasy Flight games Star Wars GM I've ever seen or played with. This guy Jay, Neophet3, if you're on the Twitters, and he's like super humble, like really nice guy, like amazing storyteller, and so he's coming out to the West Coast and in December, and one of the other guys that we play a lot with in there lives up in Palmdale, which is like an hour from here for people that don't know our geography. But
everywhere in LA is an hour from everywhere else.
So yeah, we're about an hour, whatever.
An hour.
From here, but we're gonna go to Star Wars Land, right? And then the next day, he's talked about trying to rent out 3 hours before they open time at the Scum and Villainy Cantina to run some Star Wars, which is nuts. Like, that would probably jump to the top of it. Going to a like public themed space to then play a game there would be very cool. Yeah.
Okay, actually, that reminded me of a story. So when I was in college, I went to a college that's literally like 10 minutes from Disneyland. So it was Cal State Fullerton. I'm happy saying that because I don't live there anymore. But that was way back in the day, where an annual pass to get in every single day to Disneyland was $300 whole, which at the time was incredibly expensive. But like, most of my college worked at Disneyland. Like, almost Disneyland was powered by Cal State Fullerton. But I wasn't in the game, but some friends of mine who were in the theater department were some of them were cast members and some of them were annual pass holders, because that's what you did. You saved up $300 and you would get your pass, and you could go to Disneyland every single night and just hang out. And if you told enough people it was your birthday, you'd get free tortillas and you get water. And if you're a broke college kid, you can get enough food and like have fun with your friends when they got off work.
Right.
So we were all there all the time, and we are why Disney hates pass holders. But I'm better about it now. I'm not a pass holder anymore, but yeah. But I had some friends who actually they ran a D&D game at Disneyland, because two of them like were face character or not. They were characters. I don't remember if they're face characters or masked characters. And their two friends would go when they get off work, and they'd meet at different places around the park. And like there are places at Disneyland back in the day that were like pretty empty.
Yeah.
Like people would go there like once in a while to eat or something like that, but they were very dead areas of the park. Most of them have been completely ripped out and replaced with Star Wars stuff now. But at the time you could find like nice quiet little areas where it was very pretty, and like there were tables there and things like that. And yeah, they used to run their D&D game at Disneyland. I have no idea how long it went. I was in classes with them. I was friends with some of the theater department, even though I wasn't in theater. But yeah, that's got to be a wild. And nowadays, like considering how expensive it would be, but at the time it was reasonable for them.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Like, and again, probably like found spaces, right?
Yeah.
And like, here's where we all hang out anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, what can we do here? There's kind of this like picnic area that shuts down, but you can still kind of get into it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I love weird cubby holes like that.
Yeah.
Should we look in the chat? See if anybody.
We have a little bit. They've mostly been talking with Erica. Has been talking and answering questions about the morgue that she gamed in, but
there we go.
Yeah, but I feel like the longer you game, the less weird places seem.
Yeah, maybe that's it too, right? If you were talking with people that
just started the hobby,
they'd be like, "Oh, you played where?"
Yeah, why would you do that when you were camping? Like,
right.
It seems like so odd, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think that I'm trying to think if it's almost like the space itself. It's like nothing comes to mind as cool as being like in the basement of a funeral home
on Halloween,
right, for a
Cthulhu
running Call of
game.
Cthulhu, right? It's okay. When
that seems like so perfect, like a TV show would be made about it. Like,
right, yeah.
Oh, you just happen to be here at Halloween, and then suddenly the magic in the game really works, and the zombie starts. Like, it's
Tom Hanks in that movie in the like 80s, I think, maybe, or I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah, there's Tom Hanks was in everything at some point.
Yes.
But I mean, I'm trying to think when we were in England, we met up with a group of folks that listened to Happy Jacks that when we went over there. And it was Aram, and it was like, and I said, and they do a comic, an online comic called Up to 4 Players.
Yeah.
Right, which is awesome, and they've branched out and done ton of stuff past that, and doing Savage Worlds, actual games and all these arcs.
Mm-hmm.
But when they first started that strip, a lot of it centered around to a friendly local gaming store that was right in their neighborhood, where they would go there and they would kind of do all the storytelling in the comic about it.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Hey, do you want to go game at that store?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do."
That'd be amazing.
So I, got on the tube and a bus and ended up over there. And yeah, we went and played for like 3 or 4 hours. Played a game that they were working on writing up, like in the store from the comic.
Yeah.
And so that was
so
pretty cool.
fun.
It was just like really like it's like it was just some kind of local game store, but it's all context.
Yeah.
It was
Absolutely.
really fun.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd be interested, like, if you have weirder places, like, definitely write in emails about that. Because I'm sure people have weird ass places. This is one of the times I'm like, I'm really sad, like, Tappy's not here for this episode. Because, damn, like, I bet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, weird ass places. I mean,
yeah. He's, just because of all the places he's lived.
Yeah.
Or visited. And then, yes, Tappy very much would be the guy to plan, go like, okay, I think we could go here and play this game.
Or he just happens to be there.
Yes.
Like, I happen to be in a giant statue at Burning Man. Oh, hey, you've got dice. Let's play a game. I remember the rules to every system that's ever existed.
Character sheet's just keeping you down, man. Let's go. Let's do it.
Oh, man. Callback. All right. Thank you, Erica, for that email. And yeah, definitely, if you have a amazing place that you've gamed, write an email in and share it with us. See if you can beat our surprisingly tame answers to that question.
Yeah, now I'm feeling like it's a little challenge.
I know. I'm like, we need to up that. And I'm 100% need to do a Happy Jacks con in some weird building somewhere. All right. Email number 2. Oh man, it's a long one. Okay. Greetings, my happy jackalopes aplenty. In a recent episode, a writer wrote in about a horror story of a LARP that he and his friends went to. It was really bad. It was really bad. While there were so many red flags, it felt like a communist revolution. I think this is an opportunity to discuss LARP safety tools and ways to help new folks out in the hobby. The first thing I'd like to bring up is the subject of bleed. This is the sensation of blending your own and your character's feelings. While some role playing will lead to this on some level, there are those who go way too far. They see an attack upon their character as an attack upon themselves. I've seen many games become toxic cesspools because of this concept. One way to help combat bleed is to spend time interacting with fellow gamers in ways that do not involve the game in question. There are those who play on forums, write emails, write fiction of their own characters 7 days a week. This often leads to obsessions, which can build an unhealthy attachment to a character. Unplugging, stepping away from the game, enjoying life away from it gives the faux emotional responses time to reset and fade. Anyway, the main subject I was going to discuss was safety tools. Woohoo! One of the issues with LARPs is since many method act their characters, there's a feeling that breaking a scene is undesirable. Hence, making a safety check on someone is emotionally is jarring. The Scandinavian countries have a society called Nordic Larp. These tend to be large productions with many players. They've come up with a series of hand symbols that can be used without disrupting a scene. It is designed to be a silent, effective, kind of like a live action X card or other safety tools. A common list of such, as well as some steps to help build an inclusive game, can be found at the following link. I'm going to put in this link in the show notes. And the short one is nordiclarp.org. And then I'm hoping you can search once you get to that place. But there's an article somewhere there called Creating Culture, Trust, Safety, Collaboration, LARP Mechanics that was posted in 2016. On a side note on inclusivity, many games I play in these days have pronoun pins, which list your preference of being addressed. Everyone wears one, cis, trans, NBs, as it helps to make it easier to address other players correctly. Finally, new player introductions. Having a staff member whose job it is to help new players with character creation, to help them understand the rules and settings, can be a very helpful tool. Some games also include a Newbie Merit, which is a temporary status of being, yo, don't PvP them. The plot is not kill active on them. This allows players to make mistakes and get their LARP legs and be treated as something more than a victim of more experienced characters / players. There's a lot written on the subject, and I could go on for several emails. Please do. And probably have gone on way too long as it is. But it comes down on how to run a game and an environment with maximum enjoyment for all. Yours in geek cissitude, Debbie. She, her. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, I listened to that, and I was just like,
the email,
recoiling that email, just like.
I feel like it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was like 3018 or 3019.
Yeah, and
something in there.
But you'll know it when you get there because it is the most horrifying. Yeah, just and I think one thing that came up there and I like feel resonates in this email as well is if you're running a LARP, why would you let that happen, or why would you make that a part of your story? Why would you do things that are like, hey, here's a person who's coming in, new to our group, maybe new to the hobby entirely, new to LARPing especially, and like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna gank their character, we're gonna talk crap about their costume, we're gonna like segregate the women off from their people
try and
that
hit
brought
on them.
and,
Yeah,
like, it was just everything was
Super
horrifying
gross.
and creepy, right? And the fact, and what made me really think of that was when Davey's talking about bleed, right? Is it's not like when I've got a character sheet and I'm reading off of that, and there's kind of a metaphysical distance, right? When I am there physically and I am portraying a character, right? Because this is, I haven't ever LARPed in that way, but done tons of Ren Fair. It's like, people can just decide to buy into that, which is what you try to have the experience be, but that can get really uncomfortable and weird and dangerous, right? And I'm a
Yes.
big white cishet guy, right? Who don't run into problems and whatever. I can usually talk my way out of or laugh it off, or if I need to move somebody back.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't even imagine what that space is like for women.
Yeah.
Right, where it's just like, and I've been near it and watched it, and on our stage when we both used to perform,
Mm-hmm.
right, it was like very much we're the big brothers, right, and like we're always watching out for the gals,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of stuff. But it's just I can in my mind imagine the allure of like, hey, I'm gonna go and like so get into who this character is,
Yeah.
right? I'm gonna and I know a lot of the LARPs very much ride on like political intrigue and depending on what they are.
Mm-hmm.
But to go into that with no safety tools,
Yeah. It's scary.
yeah,
And I honestly like I think that's one of the reasons. Like I've made a goal for myself to try LARPing sometime this year.
Mm.
I'm trying to still do pretty COVID safe activities, and it's outdoors and it has costuming. But I like, especially after that email, I really reflected on like, why haven't I done LARPing? It seems like a thing I would 100% love. And I actually came to that conclusion. I had a bunch of really bad experiences at Ren Fair, and I am a tall, very physically capable woman, and I was assaulted many times by cast members and by audience members.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes worse than others. And it makes me nervous to be in a place where I'm not with a group, because when I'm with a band or I'm at our stage area, it was very much a safe area.
Mm-hmm.
And the longer I did fair, the less I went around fair. And now it's much safer now than it was back when I joined.
Mm-hmm.
And I joined fair when I was 18, and like I've learned a lot. It's also why I'm really good at like dealing with people now, and like I learned a lot of techniques to keep myself safe in public spaces, even when I'm interacting with strangers, from my bad experiences at Ren Fair, unfortunately. I wish Ren Fair had tools like this, honestly, because I think that is part of my hesitation. Like going into, even if I was going with friends, going into a role playing LARP, a thing without, like, my band has like 8 other women in it, and we generally travel as a pack,
Right.
so that there's like some safety in that, and there's safety in the being a paid performer at the Renaissance Fair, where if someone starts being inappropriate, I'm like, you need to get your hands off me or I'm calling security.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that in a LARP too, but it's just, I don't know. There's a nervousness there with like being in an environment that has similar perceived dangers on my part. I'm not saying LARPs are dangerous, but that feels similarly dangerous because of my past experiences,
Mm-hmm.
without knowing that there's a security guy like down the road and things like that. So like hearing more and more about these safety tools makes me feel better. I have a bunch of friends who do LARPs, and they are very much encouraging me. I'm hoping to go with like a group at some point and do that.
It'd probably
Yeah.
it'd probably be really interesting to have someone on
Mhm.
the show who like works in organizing or running LARPs. I like Tyler used to do it a lot.
We've had a bunch of
Right,
people, and
and-
Courtney was supposed to be here tonight, which is why this email's in here.
Because I think that that's one of the things is that we used to, and I don't know now because it's been 5 or 6 years since I've done fair,
Mhm.
but we used to have meetings where it's like, oh, if you see something, do something about it.
Yeah.
Like here's how you get security. So at least we as cast members or entertainers
Yeah.
or workers at the booth or whatever, is like we all kind of knew like, okay, this is how we need to like watch out for each other.
Yeah.
And then if there were, I know that they used to also then try to point out groups that might be at higher risk.
Yeah.
Right. So like the not the fairies, but the like the theme characters that were like
The Fae,
the
yeah.
Fae, right? They're like people will get really in their space and they're
by themselves.
Them by
too.
themselves, right? They
Yeah.
just like as single entities. That's kind of their thing to move through and be very ethereal. But
There's
that,
a reason why Disney princesses and all the Disney characters have like a guard with them at all times.
Yeah. And they just did that, and I remember really specifically during one like pre-show, meetings we were having where they're like, everyone please watch out for them, like, and it's really tricky
Mhm.
because we're not supposed to be able to see them.
Yeah.
our characters, if we're all in character, we can't see them because they're from the Fey realm, and we're, you know,
Only the customers are part of like that magical
Right.
space where we can see them.
right, can see them. So you find yourself, if you're on the street trying to interact, and I can imagine this, you know, is a split some people might have to make in LARPs too. It's like, I'm going to be in my character, I'm going to be engaging with, in this instance, a customer or another actor, but I'm keeping in my peripheral vision, I'm seeing that there's one of our other actors who I know could very easily get into a bad situation,
Yeah.
right? And so I would just think it would be imperative on LARPs to say, look, we want this to be really fun and really engaging and really immersive, and like, you know, some stuff can get turned up here, but ultimately this is a game and needs to be a safe space.
Yeah.
And I would hope that that's what happens.
I think
you know,
there are definitely LARPs where it does. And honestly, like even not being in the LARP community, like there are LARPs that have good reputations and bad reputations, and I know about them. And
Mhm.
women who are in like the Ren Fair LARP role playing world, like are very clear with each other, like this one's good, don't go to that one, go with this to that one, but only if you're with a group of friends who won't leave you alone, and things like that. And even at fair, like a bunch of women at fair who I used to know, I'm sure that's changed, like, but every year we'd come up with code words with each other so that you could, because the problem with interacting with customers, and I'm not saying this is true at LARPs, but it often is whenever you're dealing with, you know, some men specifically tend to have negative reactions when you start calling them out on their behavior or tell them you're not interested in them.
What are you talking about?
Exactly. Well, especially at Ren Fair where like,
Yeah.
you know, they expect you to be the wanton wench who like is super into them, and it's like, no, dude. And like we'd have codes where like you'd walk up to, you know, we know we all hung out in the same areas of fair, so you'd walk up to them, hey, doesn't he remind you of, you know, my cousin? And that was, get me the fuck away from this guy, I don't feel safe.
Right.
And I'm sure that there's a bunch of stuff like that in the LARP community too. And one of the things I find, like when you first join fair, you like don't want to break it, you know, the thing.
Yeah.
And so I'd use the codes with people I thought would be not safe if I was honest with them.
Mhm.
But there's also a point where I'm sure a lot of these LARPs have like that you just drop characters. It's like, no, this isn't safe. Stop it. Like, no.
Right.
And
I mean, yeah.
I love the idea of the hand tools.
Yeah, that's
That's
great.
super cool. I actually want to go look this up because sometimes here in the studio, and this is one of the reasons I love talking about LARP stuff, because a lot of the safety tools that we use now in tabletop RPGs actually originated in LARP and then were like modified to work at a table. Because obviously, like LARPs need safety tools. Not more like playing at a table is dangerous, but when you actually have a physical object you were swinging at someone else, there's a little bit difference in danger there. So I really love the idea. I want to look these up because here in the studio, you can't see, but we do have some microphones and stuff that sometimes obscure. We do have X cards and everything on the table, but sometimes people can't quite see it because there's a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if we all had like a hand signal, you know, whatever it was, it'd be a lot easier for people to recognize, even if it wasn't quite on camera.
Right.
So I
Right.
definitely,
Even if you weren't like,
yeah.
which also would be perfectly fine.
And we tell everyone like this is totally fine. Like we are happy if you feel self-conscious about using a safety tool, like because it's a stream and you don't want people to know, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I encourage these, like tell people, like I say straight out, I'm like, I'm gonna X that because it's good for us to show people how it's used and like make it like normalizing it.
Yeah, and I mean to the immersion of it, and I could totally understand that, especially if you just went somewhere, it's your first time trying it, you're like, I really want to try to fit in, this seems really cool, I have friends that do it, right? You're going to let stuff slide, maybe, or you're just like, oh, okay, maybe that's just like, that felt really weird and uncomfortable, but you know, that I don't want to.
Maybe it's normal. Maybe this is how it's supposed to work.
Right, yeah, and I think that's where, you know, being really upfront, right, and whether that's tabletop game or LARP or anything, like, and that's why we always talk about session zeros, right, and why they're so important. And now with, you know, even more online play, right, it's, you know, I've several times have been like, even I'm just going to go on and play not even a streamed thing, but people like, I'll get an email at a time that's like, here's your big checklist, you know, mark what you're okay with, not okay with, lines and veils, and you know, and it's so helpful. You
absolutely.
Because, and I mean, even in our home game that I'm jamming right now, like that's how we started.
Yep.
And then every 10 or 12 sessions I check in, right? So I think that's great. Yeah, I'm really super interested in the nonverbal
Yeah.
stuff,
That's
because I think that could be really applicable in a lot of places.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that they have and they encourage like official LARP people who aren't there to play, but like who are there to facilitate and kind of make things work for the new players. And I think that is, I mean, like it's something that's been built into video games for a really long time. Like the new players, you can't kill them. They've got like
Right.
kind of like the version of God mode where like
Right.
you can't attack them. Their name is like grayed out or whatever.
Right, like a newbie zone. And it's
Yeah.
like there's no PvP active here,
Yeah.
and like
all that stuff. So I love that they're incorporating that. So that like people can get used to things, level up a little bit before they're thrown in the deep end, so that you avoid situations like that email where like the powerful characters are just knocking around these people. And I feel like there's probably a big difference in people who organize LARPs because they're passionate about LARPs and want to create community and want to have great experiences for people, and people who start LARPs because they want to be badass vampires and then I feel like those are the kind of I just feel like
not to call out a particular system or genre, but
yeah. I feel I mean we talked about this on that episode too. Like it would take a lot for me to join a vampire LARP. Like, and I'm saying this with I have like one of the biggest vampire LARPs in Southern California is like half people I know from either Happy Jacks or the gym I used to coach at. Like more than half, like 2/3 of the people are people I've either yelled at to make do push-ups or scheduled into games on Happy Jacks. So I'm very much the boss of them, but I still would like be a little hesitant, even though I trust them, just because there's a weird power dynamic with vampire stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of built into the systems too, right?
And
into
all
those
vampire
acts.
lore.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
it's just an element of that genre that would be really hard to, and I find it very intimidating and a little nerve-wracking. And I love playing it at the table now. I was terrified the first time we played. I was like, I'm excited to try this, but I don't know if I'm into like role-playing vampires and stuff like that. And then like Scully started talking and I was like, oh yeah, this is fine. my intimidation level went way down. But yeah, I don't know. There's something about that genre that makes it like inherently more dangerous because of the sexuality and the violence involved in that genre. Where if you're fantasy and you're like playing a hobbit or whatever, or an elf, there's a little less undercurrent of danger there.
Yeah, it needs to be a. It's really interesting. I think you're convincing me. Like I've got to try a LARP.
We should do it. We should like do it together.
Okay, we can do it. I'll do it.
We'll do it.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Because I remember I used to talk a lot about on way back in the day on the show about like Adventurers League and I was like, I'm kind of throwing some shade and I've never gone and done it.
Yeah.
So at like one con I was like, I'm doing it. I went online.
I remember.
I made a character. I went through the whole process. I got my Adventures League number. I went to the table and it was as bad as
You came back and reported.
Yeah, and it was like, wow, that was everything I hoped it wouldn't be, but knew it was gonna be for some reason. But at least I did it.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And even in that, there was another person at the table who was like, I would totally play some other game with you.
Yeah.
Because you could tell like you're a good role player and you're getting into it and you're not falling victim to the fact that the other guy who sat next to me at one point leaned over and was like, oh, why did you put your points that way? Like literally was analyzing my character and giving me crap for not maximizing. And I was like, thanks. Good to get out of my for my sheet. But yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, there's a lot of discussion about it. I know people have done it. Like, all right, I'll go try it. I want to go try it out. Yeah.
There's a lot of crossover in it. And I feel like LARPers learn a lot from their tabletop experiences, and tabletop has absolutely drawn and improved based on stuff from LARPs, like safety tools and things like that. And we have a bunch of LARPers in here. So like Kurt and Mace just joined a LARP, and Clara and Courtney, and like tons of LARPers in the Happy Jacks contingency, and then a bunch of costumers. So I don't know what. Well, I'm going to do it this year. I'm going to try it.
All right.
It'll be good. I mean, it's not like I have nothing to wear or anything.
funny. Oh my god, what if you had to make something?
What?
What?
Like a sewing machine?
How would that
or
even work?
armor out of workout foam mats? That's possible. Actually, I have all that already. I don't know. It would take a lot to find a LARP that I wouldn't have anything to wear to.
Right. I did think it was interesting in that episode, and we keep referencing this previous episode. Definitely go back and listen to it or watch it on YouTube, especially, and then hit that subscribe while you're there. What? But I loved the fact that I think it was Nick that was saying, like, everyone shows up and they're like Trent Reznor video rejects, right? And you're like, I would totally, that would be me.
That would be the aesthetic I would go for.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
And it's so funny because I think maybe it was Nick again who brought it up. It was like he went to one. And it's true. It's like, but if you were actually adhering to the masquerade, you'd never dress that way, unless you were like going to some event that was like, no, this is secret in a in a castle. We're gonna play D&D, and then later we're gonna have our our actual vampires.
Stuff, yeah.
But yeah, it's really interesting. I'd be the other thing I would be interested in is one that has a good location.
Yeah.
Right. To kind of even touch back on the previous email, like I'd be more interested in going to one that was like, yeah, we actually have it out in this park or forest, not like, oh, it's in a park, kind of in the middle of a busy intersection.
Los Angeles.
Yeah, here we are. Hey, everybody, we're LARPing. Hey, kids, get out of here with your softball. We're on the field. We have it for the next hour, right? As opposed to, you're taking an hour and going up to, in Big Bear or somewhere, because everything's an hour from LA. And going somewhere where it feels like, oh, this is a little secluded. I'm able to immerse myself more into it.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that. Yeah, because the vampire one, I know there's one at Strategicon, but that doesn't feel. I mean, they definitely like do it up from what I've heard. You're not allowed to just go hang out in the rooms. You have to like be participating. You can't just watch because it's not a spectator sport. But like they change the lights and stuff. So I feel like there's probably places that could work in some of the hotels for like vampire LARPs because it's like modern day and stuff like that. There's one out in like Riverside, Norco area, which is an hour from here because everything's an hour from Riverside or from LA. Everything's way further than that from our. But it's like at the fair, at the other fair site.
Oh, okay.
Like Cronenberg.
Cronenberg, yeah.
I think that there's one that is at that fair site when they're not using it as a fair site.
Oh, that's cool.
So I don't know, but it's also like 104 here this week. So I'm also like, I don't want to do anything that's outside and involves any kind of costuming whatsoever.
No.
But
it's really funny because I'm like I've never done a LARP, and then I just flashed on this memory when I was maybe 15 or 16 years old. I was at a con, and somebody came and said, like, oh, hey, we're short for some people to be monsters. Would you be a monster? And I literally just remembered that. I'm like, I think I got roped into like stand in this room, and when someone comes in, like, and then you're gonna roll some dice. And I was like, okay, that sounds fun, because like whatever, sure, great. So maybe I have accidentally, maybe I had an early strange
LARP experience.
LARP experience. I didn't know.
That's actually something that a lot of the LARPs do, and I'm actually very interested in doing that first. Is like you go in and you play an NPC first, so they give you a role, they give you a place to be, and like it's like a kind of a first taste. So I would love to do that as like a first step to do that, because I'd be fucking great at. I mean, that's basically what Ren Fair is.
Right.
Ren Fair is you are an NPC in someone else's video game, and so I feel like that would be a really great first step that I'd feel very comfortable with. I have like an assigned role. I stay here. I give the quest, or I give you the 7 poops you need from your WoW, your WoW quest or whatever it is. There's always the poop quest in World of Warcraft. So a lot of them have that as like a first step, like safety mechanic too. So it kind of like baby steps. You get to do that. I feel a lot of times you're kind of like off limits. You can't kill the NPCs.
Right.
Video games and LARPs.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's like an interesting thing to kind of ask about too. I might do that first.
That's cool. Yeah. All right, let's do this, Kimmy.
We're gonna do it.
Right,
Nick's in the chat room. He's like,
all right, Nick, hold us accountable.
No, he was gonna do it with us. I'm gonna.
Oh wait, we're all doing it.
He's like, I don't know about that.
Come on, man.
Do it.
Okay. Do it.
All right.
Thanks.
You wanna read the third one?
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dobby.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dobby.
All right. Number 3. Hello, Empress Kimmy and the Jacka Court. I'm the whole court today. Exciting.
Yeah, you are.
A small story about a campaign I am currently running. A few years ago, my group at the time played in a D&D game set in Waterdeep. After about 20 sessions, choices in the game went bad. Long story short, a massive explosion and a gateway to the underworld was opened. The players all got what they wanted, but the city, not so much. The campaign ended there, and everyone was happy. Fast forward a few years, and I'm trying to prep another campaign for many of the same people from last time. That day, what shows up in the mail? My brand new copy of Decima. Match made in heaven. I ran the idea by my group. Waterdeep meets Ravenloft meets Bloodborne. Everyone is on board. We get together for our session 0, and I pull out Decima and a map of Waterdeep that I found online. Decima and the group of players basically wrote my entire campaign for me. They loved it. Now, 20 plus sessions in, the group is constantly talking about how real the world feels and how invested they are. This has been the most I have ever gotten out of my group of players. It's been amazing, and I will never run another campaign without Decima.
Aw.
I have no question. Talk amongst yourself about how cool Decima is.
Do the PS.
P.S.
Verk.
P.S. Did this story sound good to you? Do you wish you, too, could get a copy of Decima to make your campaigns better? Would you also like to do it for free?
Free.
Do I have the opportunity for you?
You.
Starting at the reading of this email and running for 4 weeks, I am giving away a brand new copy of Decima. I may have on Unpills, bought a second copy. On the Happy Jacks Discord. Come join our great community and have a chance to win. Details on the Discord. Place disclaimer here about how this is not hosted by Golden Lasso Games.
Yeah, I'm not hosting. This is not me.
No.
But to join the Discord, go to happyjacks.org/Discord, and it will redirect you to our Discord. And we're really good about, if you've never used Discord, we're really good about like helping new people learn to use it.
Right, and if you come and you join, your first experience is so welcoming, and it's tacos. There's a lot of tacos. We like tacos.
We do.
How does that feel, Kimmy, to have people using a thing that you made to make their role-playing experiences even better?
It's very cool, and it's still very weird. And actually, like, funny story, the very, 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 very first game of Decima ever was creating a Waterdeep campaign. So
wow.
I had kind of done like this mishmash of stuff when I started the Wild Talents game.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, I put all these things together from different games, and I kind of was like like the idea was in my head and I hadn't quite figured out how to do it. And then like it just clicked one day, and I wrote like all this stuff down randomly in a notebook, really like scribbling bad. And I like frantically called Jason and Abria, and I was like, what are you doing tonight? I have this weird game and I need to try it out because I'm obsessed with it and I can't stop thinking about it. I don't think I'm gonna be able to sleep unless like I try this and see if it works. So they were both very good friends, and we like 2 hours later we're in Jason's like living room around his coffee table, and I'm like, okay, so I think this can build anything, but we have to try it. So what do you want to build? And Abria, being like D&D, she's like, let's do a Waterdeep thing. And it's like, okay. So we did this thing, like we looked up Waterdeep on the internet, and we drew a very, very bad, like kind of basic version of Waterdeep. And then the very first version of Decima, which had no cards, I knew I was going to use tarot, and it was like very roughly, but it was literally like us with like a tarot deck. I didn't know I owned a tarot deck at the time, but I evidently did. And pulled it out, and then like us looking things up on this very long, very badly written, scribbled list, and it totally worked. It like there was definitely improvements to be made.
But there was that spark,
but
right?
Yeah, it was like
that.
Like we started doing it, and I was like, and we were all like, holy shit, this is really working. Like all of us were like, oh, this is great. So we did like the Waterdeep one, and then like we did 2 more. I have the maps still inside, and like we did like 3 completely different like setups that night, and we're like, oh my god, there's so much work to do on this, but it fucking works. And that was just like, I still get goosebumps, like that moment where you're just like, holy shit, this is like a thing.
It is one, and I don't have to do this because it obviously, but welcome to being a game designer.
Yeah.
Any game I've ever worked on,
yeah,
there is a moment that occurs, and you always remember what it was.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens really early, and sometimes it happens late, where you do something and it clicks, and you're like, oh my God, this is gonna work.
Yeah.
Like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, and even if it's, and it's really funny because when you talk about it, like you just did, like, there's things I did 25 years ago, and I'll tell a story about that moment, and I still get like chills, because it's that moment when thoughts you've had, and maybe sometimes a fast brainstorm like this, you're like, come over tonight, we're gonna do it right now.
Yeah.
Right. And it happens really early. Sometimes like, oh man, I've just been banging on this thing for like a year. And then you make some change or some tweak, or some moment happens, like, that's it. Like, that's the thing. Like, I love that in Savage Worlds.
Yeah.
Right. When we were talking, and saying like, hey, what was it about the dice mechanic? Like, you have the wild die. It's like, I like rolling dice.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and because that moment when a wild die that got added, right, the chain was like, that felt really cool.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and that's the thing, is it's something happens, and in your mind it's like, could this do this? Like, could I really build everything with this?
Yeah.
What if, as I've always felt, to me, one of the things about Savage Worlds I love is that there's this slim chance for anyone to do the impossible.
Yeah.
And it's the wild die and exploding mechanic coupled together. And when that happens, right, it's like, oh my God, that was it. Like, that's the whole reason I play.
Yeah.
And we've both had that happen at cons. It happened in the game we co-GM'd.
Yeah.
Right, where like the players did crazy stuff, and then it was like, no, wait, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna use my whatever you want, and then the crazy thing happens, and the dice explode, and everybody's like, oh yeah. And it's like, those are the things that, when they happen, when you're in the midst of game development,
Absolutely.
Like, oh, this is the thing.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm so excited for you to have done this, right? And like, that email is so awesome, where I always think it's really cool when someone's like, hey, so this thing that you made, I used that thing, and like, it made whatever we're doing like way better.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh
yeah,
oh, good.
I feel like, and I always feel a little weird about putting the emails in the show, like I don't know, I feel like I'm running the show. I feel like it shouldn't, I don't want the show to be like an advertisement for my stuff, but also like, I'm proud of it, and I'm glad it's helping the community, and like, it's always kind of like and we need emails, so I can't really like just siphon those emails. But yeah, it's always amazing to hear how well it works for people, and it's so funny because like you were just talking about, like, the games that you take forever, like Starscape has been like a very long process of incremental changes, and it's getting close to being done, but it's been like almost it's like almost 2 years now that I've been like chipping away at it. And it was like a concept that, like, Decima was like the mad painter, and in one night you get done with like this giant masterpiece. And then I like slowly tweaked, and I did like like safety consultations and stuff with it, so people because I wanted it to be very safe for everyone, and disability consultations on it to make it like really as accessible as it could be. But it changed very little as far as the concept, like from that first night. Like the words got the questions got rephrased a little bit or shortened because you have to fucking fit it on a tiny little bit of a card. So that was like the biggest thing, is like, how can I make this fit on this one end of a card? But Starscape was like chipping something out of marble, and it's still in a process of that, where it's like, I know this can be a thing, and like every time I play through it, there's something else that I like chip a little bit more away from, and eventually I don't know if it'll ever be done. Like, I feel like when Decima was done, I'm like, this is done and it's ready to go. And then Samantha's art just like made it perfect. But I don't know, like, Jason talks about this with demigods, and you've talked about it too with the games, the video games and stuff that you've worked on too, is like, there's always that thing that you like notice later that you like can't ever fix now because it's out there.
Yeah, and you're like, yeah. It's interesting, because I think it's that all of those feelings just talked about applies to like almost every creative endeavor. Yeah. If you're writing a song, or you're like, penning a story or anything, or designing a campaign. Yeah, or designing a campaign. Yeah, absolutely. I was just gonna say, like, that is it. And when those happen, like, I'm very plot point driven when I GM, and all I can say is like, always be thankful for fantastic players because they give you so much at the table.
Yeah.
And it's really funny. I recently went back and on YouTube, because it's a great place to do this, went back and actually watched some of the Yuma Station stuff again. So I was like, I've got a project in mind for Yuma Station. I'm like, I kind of go back and figure out what we did. And only because I know what I'm looking for, I can see the moments where some interaction occurred, and I can watch myself and go, that's where that became canon in the game. Or it's like, oh, that's where a thing clicked. And the and I told the players this, but I had no BBEG for the campaign.
Really?
Until we had our amazing friend come on, and he played the ambassador, and it was like, oh, this is great. He's doing, oh, this is so fantastic. And it was just like, we got to the last part of it, and I won't spoil it if people haven't seen it, because I'd love you to watch it. But he does something at the very end of the episode. He's in his one character, and as soon as it happened, and I called it, I was like, oh, and that's where we're gonna end for the night. Hey, thanks, my God, thanks for coming on. It's really great. And I went home and I was like, oh my God, thank God I've got 2 weeks, because I think I just figured out the whole story arc. And but it was that thing, like I could tell, like all the sparks went off. Like and right now as I'm talking about it, I'm getting a little tingle. And I spent 2 weeks going back, listening to old episodes, finding stuff out, and realized like, oh, you know what? All these puzzle pieces fit together if I make this the result of it, that he inadvertently set up. Right? Even though we had spent a lot of time talking about it. And then when the reveal came the next episode, it was like, oh God, what? Like, how did we miss it? Because it makes so much sense. And it's like, okay, that was awesome. Right? And I think to me, that's the biggest payoff as a GM.
That's why we do all this stuff.
Right? Is to see something, and not because like I planned it and I'm brilliant or something. It's like, but I'm pretty good at putting stuff together as it happens, and notes and everything. And then like, hey, I think I could have this occur that's going to feel like it did. But it gives you that sense of like, oh, the magic happened, right?
The hardest thing in those moments is not to give it away with your face. Like to play cool, you're like, oh my gosh, and inside you're just like, oh, the thing, and you're just like, be cool, look cool. Look at your nails. Very chill. Everything's fine. When your like brain is exploding inside, and you're like, don't show it to the players.
The biggest upside of even running a home game, and originally being forced to do it over Zoom because of COVID, but now it's because, you know, even though Elspeth and Dave and I are all now in SoCal again, we've got Tyler and Kurt in the game, Kurt Potts, in our home game, but there was a very short moment where they were in a obviously some kind of necromancer's workshop, and a character they had met earlier in the game and had done some stuff for and very much trusted was down there, and he's like, oh my God, and he's like, they forced me to do this thing, and very believable story. And while they're all like, and they're like, okay, and they kind of leave him there, this little gnome, and they're all starting to search this room and everything, and really like offhandedly to each other. One of them was like, it's kind of weird that he was here. And so I like, and I check. He rolled like a 22 for stealth. I look at everybody's passive, and I'm like, okay. Then another maybe like minute or two go by. And one of them's like, hey, I'm going to turn back around and talk with Frelwick. I'm like, yeah, he's not there. And they're like, what? And they go and they find that he's taken this cart that they used to get there. So now they have like an 8-hour walk back to town. They're screwed, right? And they're like, what? And they find a little secret room. And they go in, and Dave says, and I said, oh yeah, there's a bed in here, not little. I said, there's a bed in here and a dresser, you know, but it's like, obviously, you know, someone sleeps here while they're working or something. And Dave said out loud, he's like, I swear to God, if there's little clothes in that dresser, that guy is my nemesis. and he was like, okay. I was like, okay, what do you want to do? I opened the dresser. What's in there? Little clothes. Because what else was going to be in there at that point? Right? And so it was like, great. Thank you guys for kind of spike, because up until the moment where they were like, they got a little sus, he was, everything I was saying was like, no, that's all totally true. Like, yeah, he was being forced to do this because I had a different person in mind to be doing the stuff. But it's like, oh no, that is so much better. And like some of the weird stuff that I made up earlier and did a really bad job with will just feel like bad lying. Oh yeah, he's definitely the guy who did it.
Yeah.
But that's the secret, is like, never tell your players.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I feel like players have those moments, absolutely. Like what you were talking about with Savage Worlds, those moments where the dice either like, and we've had this a lot on our Hexbreakers game recently, where the dice are just so fickle. Like we have amazing successes or terrible ones, and it feels like the dice know, like everything's riding on this. We've got to get out of here. We're all gonna die. Boom, the biggest success of the night, and it happens like every time. But like anytime we're like, okay, this is really important. We have to do this massive fail, and it's just like the highs and lows, and like as a player, as you're writing, you know, the peaks and valleys of your successes, you get that same feeling as like a designer does when they're, you know, creating games, or any other creative, a painter, because it's contributing to art. It's contributing to a like cultural collective experience, and I think that's like at the core of it. Like I think we focus on GMs a lot because it tends to be GMs who are looking for advice, but I feel like the experience is very parallel for players too, even if you're just playing one character versus like planning a campaign or playing many NPCs. The emotional investment and that high you get from like the immersion of it is so powerful and so just amazing.
I think that's why as a GM and as a player, as a GM, I always check in and say, like, is there anything that you want to pay off with your character that you're not getting? Is like, you know, whether it's you're using a mechanic like stars and wishes and things like that, or just checking and saying, oh, hey, is there some place you want to go? Is there something you want to have happen? How do I, you know, because like I want to make sure I'm driving it that way. And as a player, I have found out now, and this is, I think, when you GM a lot, you start using GMing habits as a player.
Yeah.
Is I've very recently told my DM, where I'm like, oh, here's a thing that I want to do with my character, and I'm telling you I want to do it because you wouldn't know, but here's why, and here's how it fits in my backstory, blah, 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 whatever it is. And thank goodness I've been playing with people that are like, oh, that sounds awesome, let's do it.
Yeah.
Because it does have that same payoff, right? When you do it with your character. So, and I think it's important to, when it happens at the table, whether you're the GM or whether you're another player, and you, because you can kind of see sometimes when those moments happen.
Yes.
Right? Is to be there for it.
Yeah.
There's a show that I watch, an AP, and one of the players is like so super supportive. So someone else will be like, oh, and they're like, oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. They're like, you know, they're in, and you're like, yeah. They're not just celebrating like my character's excited for your character. It's like, oh, you just did a cool thing, and I'm here for your cool thing.
Yeah. Well, we do this on stage all the time. We throw focus.
Yeah.
So like when you're on stage and somebody's doing something, as another person on stage, you have choices. Like you can try and compete and be more interesting, so you pull focus from them, or you can look bored or just not be interested at all, and that also pulls focus for the audience. The audience starts looking at you and like, why aren't they interested in what's happening? Because it's not normal. And then like other performers, like you turn and you watch what happens. Even if it's like the millionth time you've been in the scene, you turn your body, and I'm not gonna turn my head because I have to keep it pointed at the microphone, but like you turn your head and you stare like you've never seen this, and it's the most amazing thing you've ever seen, and you react to it. You laugh or clap or agree or whatever it is, and that increases that moment for the audience because of how humans react. So doing that at the table too, like also just because you're having a time and you want to be there for your friend, but also be like, yeah, like that builds up the momentum of exciting moments, whether it's with an audience or with other people at the table. It just like compounds and exponentially on itself as people like build up that excitement and support there.
I mean, I remember when the Green Mile came out, and
Mhm.
Michael Duncan was talking about, and it was like that was a big role for him to do.
Yeah.
And he was talking about it. He said the thing that was the most incredible part for him about doing that movie was this moment where he had this very emotional scene, and it's pretty much entirely he's monologuing. He's talking to Tom Hanks's character, but the camera is on him all the time. And if you go back and watch the film, you can see where this scene is.
Yeah.
And he is getting like every emotion out and everything else. And traditionally, what they would do is they would bring in a body double
Yeah.
to sit, so because they're just getting an out of focus thing here.
Yeah.
While they're focusing.
So the
on
star
him.
doesn't have to stand
Right.
there.
Tom Hanks came in and did the whole scene with him like 2 or 3 times,
Amazing.
and he so he could give him the actual energy and reactions back to help him get a better role.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing that I'm trying to do more in my life, and definitely, that bleeds over in a positive way to the table, is to put the phone down, to put the distractions down, right? And so when something's happening, like maintaining the focus
Yeah.
on the other people at the table,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you're GMing, you don't have a lot of time to be like, "Oh, hey, so what are you guys doing over there?" My phone, check
Right.
something. But when you're playing and there's long combat rounds, or someone else is doing an RP intensive thing, right? It's easy to check out because that's what we do,
Yeah.
right? And whether it's live at a table and you pull your phone out, or you're online and you're like, I'm just gonna alt tab over to my other window. I'm gonna get my Wordle in today, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? Is like really like challenge yourself to say like, no, I'm going to be really present, because
Yeah.
that's the thing that makes the stage stuff work. Is when you
Absolutely.
are present and you're giving them focus.
Yeah.
Because then the whole audience is like, why is everyone looking over there? What is that person doing? Why
Yeah.
are they so interested? Now I want to be interested.
Yeah, and it's built into us because we are like community driven beings. Like we're herd animals basically. So like we instinctually are interested in things that other people in our community are interested in. So as everyone at the table is like really making that commitment to be present, like you were saying, it really does increase the immersion and everyone's interest in the game. And it's even if you're not streaming or any of that stuff, it is a trick that we use on stage, but it is built into our like lizard brains to work that way. And you can use that at your table to increase the immersion, increase the kind of emotional experience, and just kind of up how rich the game feels as a player and as a GM and as anybody at the table.
Yeah, there's maybe, I don't know. I love the emails that we get here. Like, even, and I say we, like it's my first time back in forever, but you're
part of we.
But it, like, even just listening, right? The community for Happy Jacks is so thoughtful, and like, it's one of the things that, when the Discord kind of got reorged and a bunch more people came on, it was like, man, there's like so much good stuff.
So many people with so much knowledge.
Yeah, and like so many good stories,
Yeah.
and like interesting insights, and even just like breakdowns of stuff where it's like, that would be like a whole hour if you came on and did it on mic.
Right.
But you have gone through and like, laid it out in our Discord channels. And it's so cool. So for everybody who's like sending in emails and joining our Discord and everything, thank you so much, because it is so good.
We love you. And yeah, I mean, Happy Jacks is shows, but more than that, we're the community.
Yeah.
Like we started as shows, and the community that has been built up because we started talking randomly and sending our voice into the voids of the internet. Like that's the most important part of Happy Jacks. And like my goal with like keeping it going was like, yeah, I like doing the shows. It's fun. Gave up a lot of space in my house, but that's fine. But like, it's really like, I just couldn't imagine having that community go away.
Mm-hmm.
And if we ever did stop the shows or anything, I'm not stopping the shows, don't panic. But like, if we ever did, like, I would hope that we would be able to keep at least the community online going, because it's so helpful and supportive, and for gaming, and also just for being like when I have a bad day, I can go in like the venting channel and be like, God, I'm so upset about this at work today or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like real people there, and like who are like my real friends, even if I don't like see them all the time. So anyway, I love you all. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, that's done.
All right. And thank you so much, Verk, for doing that contest that is not sponsored or run by Golden Lasso Games. So yeah, if you join the Discord at happyjacks.org/discord, there's a giveaway channel, and like once you join, like you'll get tacos. Like they'll explain how it works. The tacos are real. Okay. So thank you for joining us for season 30, episode 21 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. My name is Kimmy.
My name is Bill.
Thank you so much to our chat mod, James V, and all our amazing Patreons who keep us ad-free and independent. You do an amazing thing for us. We don't ever have to worry about playing games that are popular to get sponsorships or to like get viewer money or subs on Twitch or anything like that. You keep us able to play independent games and indie games that we love, and just because we have, we are passionate about them. So thank you. And for our call to action, please visit our YouTube channel and subscribe, even if you never plan to watch us on YouTube, because that bump in subscribers will make us more visible for a period of time to new people who will hopefully discover us. It's called discoverability, and it has to do with the algorithms on the interwebs. So yeah, it is youtube.com/happyjacksrpg. And tonight we are going to leave you with a song by the Poxy Boggards called Pub That We Call Home. And you can find more about the Poxy Boggards at poxyboggards.com. And that's Boggards with 2 G's. All right. Thank you all, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Well, allow me to tell ye of a place dear to heart, of each sailor and soldier, both Slavic and smart. Each face in that place is familiar and warm, where each traveler weary retreats from life's storm.
'Tis this pub that we call home, and from her we ofttimes may roam. But our respite we'll find in a pint, maybe 9, in this pub that we call home.
Though married but not merry, bearing lowly life's load, and suffering the chafing of my long-winded road, entombed in the womb of this free house at Bath, her walls provide shelter from my wife's wicked wrath.
'Tis this pub that we call home, and from her we ofttimes may roam. But our respite we'll find in a pint, maybe 9, in this pub that we call home.
In the hours when life sours and I'm weary and beat, to the hopping and coughing I need to retreat. With a pale cup of ale and my good mate's concerns, I'm rested yet weary to the battle return.
'Tis this pub that we call home, and from her we ofttimes may roam. But our respite we'll find in a pint, maybe 9, in this pub that we call home.
With the raging of aging and my last breath I crave, please pull up the floorboards and dig me a grave. As you rouse and carouse, pour an ale on the floor. If you listen with care, you may hear me cry more.
Tis this pub that we call home, and from her we ofttimes may roam. But our respite we'll find in a pint, maybe 9, in this pub that we call home. 'Tis this pub that we call home, and from her we ofttimes may roam. But our respite we'll find